I'm not really sure where it's going to go. I'm not really sure what topics we're going to cover, but we're going to have some fun along the way. I've got a great group of panelists here to discuss what's happened in 2020 and, more importantly, what to expect in 2021. Normally I would go through and introduce each of you, but since we have kind of a larger group here, I'm going to just ask each of you to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself, and, maybe start off with a kind of a recap of maybe something that was learned from 2020 or a big, trend from 2020 that you think is going to continue. Something that kind of is coming from the past that you think is going to kind of roll into the future. So Robin, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so I'm Robin Johnson. I'm the CEO of Marketplace Blueprint. We are a boutique agency that specializes in Amazon channel and PPC management.
And your prediction, or not your prediction, but like something from 2020 that you think is going to roll with us into 2021, or a big thing that happened in 2020 that maybe every seller should be making sure they're aware of.
So I think that the biggest change is going to be happening that started this year, that's going to be happening next year, is more big money and more big brands are paying more attention specifically to the marketplace. This means that you're going to have to become a more sophisticated in order to build successfully on Amazon. The days of Field of Dreams are like, they're gone. They're like in the history books. Now you're going to have to really learn how to have a full funnel strategy, how to have listings that really do convert. It's not finding golden gaps anymore. It's about being able to outmarket your competition. And in addition to finding products where the demand ratio is right where it needs to be.
Awesome. Thank you. And we definitely had some people who were asking, like, where are the gaps and like, where's the opportunity in 2021? So I think that's a great point. Alex, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure thing. So Alex Sklar, head of business development and partnerships for Payability. And yeah, I think one thing that we're seeing like a really huge shift in is online groceries. I think with everything that happened with COVID, people are getting more comfortable ordering food online, and online groceries in general. We've seen huge spikes. We've seen marketplaces like Target, like focus almost exclusively on groceries. And I think, it takes like kind of like a global pandemic to make like a tectonic plate shift. And I think we're in that right now. We're going to see buying habits change as we go forward. And I think online groceries is going to be one of the big ones.
Definitely. I'm sure a lot of people here have tried groceries for the first time during all of this. Let's see, Brett, you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. My name is Brett Darby, and I am the director of Seller Labs Managed Services. We offer white glove PPC management for brands looking to manage their Amazon advertising. And in terms of 2020, one of the biggest changes that I've seen is the need for brands to focus more on content. Content has always been king, but it's more imperative today that brands focus on the future and have a forward-thinking mindset to say, what is going to be required in 21, 22, and that's video and a number of other things, but brands need to start moving in that direction today.
Great. Thanks, Brett. Mr. Heller, how about you going next?
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, I'm Eric Heller. I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer for Wunderman Thompson Commerce, but I was the founder of Marketplace Ignition, an early player and strategy consultancy for brands selling to Amazon. When I think about trends, I was thinking back to something that Robin said first when she was talking about, she talked about from the third party side, be ready, brands are getting more involved. And, we, pretty exclusively work with brands. And I could tell you, there were some crazy stats that came out at the end of Q2 from McKinsey that said, and I have them here in front of me, that 75% of consumers tried a new shopping behavior. And of the ones that did, 73 that got pushed to a new brand because someone ran out of stock, 73% intended to keep going with that brand. So, we all learned, I'll be cute, but we all learned that there's not that much difference between a lot of toilet papers, for example. And we're like, wow, I was really brand loyal, but maybe I would buy this other stuff. And I think brands have seen this and they are doubling down, believing across the board that Amazon will be huge next year. So you can expect brands to continue to press and invest in Amazon and to make sure they don't get caught out of stock again.
Awesome. We're going to cover a couple of those topics. I think brandless commerce is a big one. A couple questions asked about the importance of brand and brands coming into the mix. Jing, you want to go next?
Sure. Hey, everyone. This is Jing Gao. I am a longtime private label seller on Amazon. Sorry about my dog barking in the background. And my thinking for next year from a seller's perspective is that in 2021, the whole restriction on how you restock with Amazon in terms of IPI lowest standards, no lower than 500, is going to stick. So the next year for a lot of us sellers to really focus on stocking accurately. You want to make sure that you follow your sales trend very closely. If it's going up or going down, if you're out of stock or if you're stocking too much, can hurt you in both ways. And that is especially going to be more important in 2021.
Yeah, and I also predict that Jing is going to get married in 2021. So yeah, sorry I had to go there, but that's my prediction. And Jing, she doesn't sell herself right. She's actually, we call her the first lady of e-commerce, or I guess maybe she has to get married first before they both have the title. But they'll be the first couple of e-commerce as two sellers come together to marry and form a union.
You're making me blush. Okay.
All right, Joseph, you want to go next? Follow that up. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jeff. I'm Joseph Hansen, CEO and founder of Buybox Experts. We're a pure play digital agency for brands selling on Amazon. You know, thinking about, Jane kind of stole my thunder a little bit because I was going to talk about logistics, right? I was going to say with what happened with so many brands being able to ship product into Amazon during the onset of the pandemic, most of them are really looking at logistics and taking that seriously now. But since she already went there, really advertising, I think, is going to continue to develop in a remarkable way on Amazon. A lot of the big players are investing heavily. And although during the pandemic, we saw a better return on spend and we saw a better kind of CPC, I think you're actually going to see costs start to go up again like they were trending before.
Great. Yeah. We're going to cover both logistics, IPI, and advertising with the whole panel. So great lead in there. Carlos, you want to take it from there?
Let's do it. So Carlos Alvarez, full-time seller for about a little shy of 15 years now. I also founded the largest Amazon seller meetup group in the world, my only vanity metric that I care about. And the thing that was really a throwback for me and I was ready for, and I'm loving it, and I predict it to keep going is merchant fulfilled. So being able to fulfill stuff yourself and take control, especially during launches of 3PL services, or if you're set up for it in-house to do that. And the other thing I saw was just an explosion of Amazon Live Video, which we did amazing on during this time. So
and you're great at experimenting with a lot of these things, and you've been doing merchant fulfilled for a long time with some of the products you cover. So I'm sure there's some valuable insights you can add when we get into those discussions. Thanks. Mr. Brandon.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
So I'm Brandon Young. My wife and I, we are 8-figure Amazon private label sellers. I also coach through a program called Seller Systems. We have master classes and a full college level course. Prediction for 2021. I think that the trend was accelerated for the growth of retail to move towards e-commerce. And I think that sellers are going to have to become much more efficient with launches. So currently people are kind of just throwing a bunch of products at it, giving a bunch of products away with IPI score, limit restrictions on inventory. You're going to have to become much more aware of what the algorithm is and how to pull those levers without giving away too many units. So you have to become much more skilled as far as launches go.
Awesome. Ryan.
Hey man, sorry, I came in and out there for a second, but Ryan Mulvaney, founder of a company called Quiver. We help brands sell more products on Amazon in a very clean and simple nutshell. You know, a lot of the topics hit here today, I was going to say, but I think the big one that I'm expecting for 2021 is the ongoing curation of the Amazon catalog and almost a decommoditization of the Amazon catalog, because you've got this endless shelf life or endless shelf space. And so you've got 100 different coffee mugs that you can choose from. How is Amazon going to help you curate that? And it's things like there are been highlighted content, Amazon Live. I think a more sophisticated level of curation is coming. And the brands that are sort of paying attention to it and the brands that are creating the right kind of content and working with the right influencers are going to benefit from it in the coming years.
Great. Thanks, Ryan.
Ryan also has the coolest LinkedIn content I come across.
Yeah, he does. He spends a lot of effort.
Yeah, I want to know the secret of that. That's amazing. His LinkedIn profile is absolutely amazing.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Carlos.
And if you have followed Rachel in the past, you could probably predict what her prediction will be, but I'll let her make it, and then I'll tell you if I was right or not.
I have two predictions that I actually wanted to make. The first one is Amazon Live is going to keep getting bigger. We've been testing it too this fall, and there was one where we just were live for about an hour in 2 different sessions and sold almost $1,300 worth of stuff. So it's been pretty impressive, the kind of growth that we're seeing there. We're just testing, trying different things. Yeah, so my other one is probably what you're thinking of, Jeff. So I founded Cascadia Seller Solutions after working at Amazon for 8 years, about half of that time in compliance. And finally, there's been some interesting stuff happening in compliance this year, and I think it's going to continue into next year. So 2 things that I think are both good and bad, mixed bag for sellers, is that Amazon is actually requiring certificates for children's sleepwear for the first time. They've started kind of randomly collecting other stuff, but for children's sleepwear, it's been across the board for anyone that we know that's doing children's sleepwear, they're being required to provide the certificate. And so that's really good for those sellers who are doing the right thing, because it's expensive to do the right thing. And for any sellers who are not ready, then it's not going to be good for you. So make sure you're getting ready there. Children's sleepwear is the most regulated children's product. So of course they're starting there. And the other thing that was kind of like, really, what are you guys smoking, was on the new certificates of analysis requirements for supplements. Requiring that you have a COA from a third-party laboratory, which is not typical in the industry. It's not been a thing that people have had. None of our clients had third-party COAs from a lab, and they wanted us to have the lab on the label, which is just like, no, guys, this is not going to work. So I'm sure that will change in the next month or 2, but it shows to me at least that Amazon wants to take compliance more seriously going forward.
All right, Don, you want to wrap us up here with introductions? I think you're muted.
All right. Yep. There we go. I'm sorry. How are you, Jeff? I'm excited about this. My name is Don Hennig. I'm a co-founder of AccrueMe. And I think what I'm going to mention as something that happened in 2020, and I see for 2021 ties together. In 2020, we saw about $1 billion come into the industry to a few firms, and more firms every other day, it seems like, looking to buy brands and buy Amazon sellers. So all these roll-ups, I can't help but think back to the sanitation industry, and you see waste management today everywhere. And when it used to be, you know, everybody had their own little one truck. I see in 2021 and going forward, you know, fewer firms, fewer sellers, but much larger and tougher competitors. So I think there's a big opportunity facing sellers in 2021, and it's up to the sellers who really want to take, you know, the bull by the horns and go after it and make it happen. They have a big opportunity in front of them, and not to waste this coming year.
Great. Thank you. And for those that don't know me, my name is Jeff Cohn. I'm Vice President of Marketing at Seller Labs, and I've been involved in e-commerce in some way, shape, or form since about 2005. And if you want to know what I do on a daily basis, this is it. I hang out and I talk to people that are on this call and other people, and, you know, use that knowledge to help build the Seller Labs software and services with people like Brett. So thank you everybody for attending. As you can imagine, that was just introductions, and we covered a whole host of topics. And now I want to go into some of those topics. Our goal is to take this webinar for really maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Some of our panelists have to drop off after the first hour. So I'll kind of give a warning before that happens in case a few of them drop off. And if people want to stick around and kind of keep going deeper into some of these things, we will. And I've asked our panelists to kind of shorten their answers and not repeat what other people said. And they did a great job in the introduction. And let's get into some of these topics. So the first topic I wanted to cover was about inventory. I spoke with a brand that we do a lot of business with, Vermont Teddy Bear. And Vermont Teddy Bear told me that they have to pull $30,000 worth of inventory from the Amazon warehouse because it's Christmas related. Now, that inventory never went for sale. It was inventory that they shipped in and has been moving around the Amazon warehouses in a restricted format, but has never been available for sale. By the time it's available for sale, it's going to be too late. They're going to have to wait for it to be available for sale, and then they're going to have to pay for removal. This is a true reality that all Amazon sellers are dealing with the restrictions of inbound inventory, storage limits, and all of the other restrictions. How does this change in 2021? And what do brands need to be doing to prepare for this? Anybody want to start?
I'll jump out there and say you have to have a merchant fulfilled. You have to be ready to do some merchant fulfilled. Hindsight's 2020, and I had the benefit of just one of my larger brands is a live insect brand, so there's no FBA there, and I was set up for merchant fulfilled. But if you go all in and send everything to FBA, and you should become at their mercy to have that inventory tied up, I don't think that's an option moving forward.
I think. Go ahead.
No, first of all, I'm blown away by a live insect client. I really hope that I get one of those ones. That sounds
absolutely
amazing.
Everybody.
Can you send him the box that?
So I just want to add to this that I not only agree with you, but I think, a year ago, what was really incredible to me this year is, a year ago, October, we were all talking about, one vendor and whether or not people would be able to sell to Amazon and from, and then surprisingly or mysteriously, that suddenly went away, right? Because all Amazon was hoping was someone help them deal with fulfillment, right? Someone, they stopped doing the enforcement. All of a sudden, all of our clients weren't getting letters anymore. And then you start seeing stats that more than 35-40% of brands are doing hybrid. And I don't know the percent of 3P sellers, but what I would say is I think that it goes to what Brandon was just saying. The echo of this is that more paths to market, more hardened fulfillment. And I think you'll see this on both sides, just finding as many ways to deal with massive growth in this space as we have all these consumer purchasing shifts. I think hybrid is just one of them where I think certainly most clients I know have been looking at that, trying to find solutions, find 3PLs, just find ways to solve this. And I think that's going to continue to grow now that Amazon recognizes they need it.
Does Amazon solve this problem, right? Does Amazon get more capacity? Does Amazon find more efficiency in 2021?
But is there enough? They're talking about increasing their footprint by 50%, but
I think a lot of their problem currently is due to COVID and the worker restrictions. They've had something ridiculous like 30,000 employees come down with COVID. So I think a lot of the restrictions that they put into place with IPI scores, they need to become a little bit more intuitive there. There's no reason that an IPI score should apply to the teddy bear company or to a $10 million seller the same way it applies to a guy that's launched his second SKU, right? Like there should be ways to have a representative that can manually change these limits to allow us to launch products with a track, because we have a track history of launching products successfully.
Well, and you're right. IPI does not take seasonality into account, right? So
which is ridiculous.
If they need more SKUs for Valentine's Day or for Christmas, they're not going to get it.
Yeah, we were sitting there holding our breath, hoping that toys would go up because we were expecting a 10 times increase in velocity. And meanwhile, it's like, oh, we launched 30 toys in November and we're sitting here, still sending 200 in. And it's like, well, we're kind of expecting to sell 6,000 of these. And so we have to get through that whole week of waiting and then increase to 700 and increase to 1,500. And it's just frequent shipments. Merchant fulfilled, like Carlos said, is one of the solutions, but frequent inbound shipments and working on your logistics and becoming more streamlined is going to be key.
So Jerry's asking, does this potentially impact the changes? Amazon has a couple of changes they're rolling out in Q1. One is around regional seller fulfilled Prime. The other is adding the Saturday requirement for some of the merchant fulfilled or seller fulfilled Prime options. Does Amazon waive some of these or delay some of these, or do you have to keep moving forward as if it's not going to change?
They haven't backed off on ours. As a matter of fact, we're hearing 1-day shipping to where we're looking at what products we're going to have to pull.
Yeah,
I mean, so
can't
Carlos is down here in Miami with me. Carlos, how are you getting to zone 5 in 2 days? It's impossible and extremely expensive, right?
Yeah, no, it's cost prohibitive.
Yeah, so I mean that's part of the issue is that you can do merchant fulfilled and try to get into a seller fulfilled prime, but your ranks are going to be worse. You're not going to convert as well because people want that prime option. So, like merchant fulfilled can only do so much depending on where you are in the country, unless we want to move from Miami to some miserable place like Chicago.
No.
Well, I think it's also about managing it, surviving in the next year as things are changing so rapidly. There's going to be peaks and lockdowns and all the other whatever there's going to be. It's having that redundancy in that flexibility. So it might go one way, it might go the other way, and we don't really know until we get further into it. The key as a company is to make sure that if that zone 5 to zone 1 shipping is important for your bottom line, that you create some redundancy where you are able to have some of that, maybe someplace in the middle of the country where you can deliver that in a timely manner and switch back and forth between FBM and FBA.
Yeah, I can't agree with Robin more. It's you really just want to ride this wave out with seller fulfillment, with FBM. I mean, we started to adapt some of the UPS, rates, even though it's higher compared to the post office, because getting shipments from California all the way to Florida, you can no longer guarantee under a week with priority. You just really have to make changes as it happens. And also to say that Amazon is really not taking account of seasonality, I think they are, but it's in a more conservative way. So one example I can give you is that I have a lot of Christmas products. So for me, I can send in more shipments for Christmas, but in a very limited way. I've been noticing that Amazon is really controlling how much I can restock on seasonal products versus just, regular day to day. So I think, yes, velocity is going up, and Amazon is really taking into account of the historical data, not just how you're selling this year in terms of velocity going up in the season, but also in the previous year, same product, what month, what date was it starting to decline in terms of sales because it's a seasonal product. So what, I think with our company, we've been doing is stocking really smart. We're taking account, what day is the holiday this year, what day is Christmas, when we need to stop stocking so much. So it's really riding the wave out and making changes accordingly.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jing. If they would just couple that with what Brandon mentioned a little bit ago, which is just looking at not just the historical sales of the product, but also historically how the seller has performed. And, they've selling for 15 years and haven't brought a lemon in yet. And now you're saying I can launch a product with 200 units. It's crazy.
Well, maybe we'll turn this into their first user, their first user group. But I think the challenge that I've seen with a lot of sellers with regard to this has been the time that it takes, right? So you used to be able to ship a product in on Monday, get it to your warehouse, and it's available for sale by Thursday. Now it's 14, 21 days before that product's for sale.
Yeah, check-in times are significantly higher or lower depending on the way that you ship it in. And I work with Jing's fiance, getting married. So Eddie quite a bit. And Eddie is probably runs one of the best 3PLs in the country because he's a seller himself, understands the way that Amazon wants things done and understands Amazon really well. Sending a full truckload has been by far the best thing for us. And we've sent truckloads that can hold 26 pallets with just 10 pallets, just because we know, it's still cheaper than LTL, but LTL takes 3 to 4 weeks to ship to check in. UPS is taking a while to get there and check in, and everything might go sit at a third-party warehouse and wait for an appointment. But a truckload is getting there, getting checked in, and within 2 days, we have our stuff available.
Great. So I'm going to roll. I want to say, does Joseph or Alex, Don,
I think
Rachel,
a lot of
add
this
anything
benefits
there before we move on?
Yeah, I think a lot of this benefits the larger sellers, the FBA aggregators, the large resellers, because they can absorb a lot of the costs here in using like a non-partnered carrier to get product into Amazon and get it there a lot quicker than your smaller sellers who traditionally rely on using that Amazon partnered carrier network to get it in because of the lower cost. And then I really like what Eric said about new paths to market. I would expand that to, I think consumers are much more open to getting product not fulfilled by Amazon now, which then expands the ability for a lot of Amazon's competitors, Walmart and some of the other retailers, to actually enter the market. It's not as much of a moat as it was before. I think the FBA whole logistics was a huge moat for Amazon. That's somewhat dissolving because people are now open to all these other avenues of product coming to them and not so reliant on it getting to them so quickly.
Yeah,
Great.
Amazon has definitely opened up and invited competitors to come into the market because they've conditioned buyers now to not be dependent on Prime. And you've got a lot of players in the marketplace that can do one-day shipping, like Walmart.
I'm going to use that as a transition to my next question, which is around e-commerce. And as we start to see, and I started a little poll for this one, so I'll share the data, asking people, are they currently selling on their own e-commerce site or do they have plans to? And this question came up quite a bit. I called it marketplace expansion. So when we talk about marketplace expansion, what are the opportunities as sellers to expand time to expand? How do you get access to the capital to expand? What does this mean for Walmart? One of the questions that was asked from people attending was, what will Walmart do in 2021? Are they really a threat? Air quotes, right? Well, actually they used real quotes. How can you add value to your website that competes with Amazon, right? So Amazon's got free shipping. So how do you flip that around and do that on your own? So just to give you a sense here of the poll, here the poll here had about 60% of people have their own website, 30% are planning to in 2021, and about 15% don't have it and are not planning to have their own website. So let's talk a little bit about e-commerce and expanding off of Amazon.
Yeah, I could jump in here. I think those numbers fall right in line with what we see with our customers. About more than half of our customers sell on multiple marketplaces. So, we don't work with just Amazon. We work with Amazon, Walmart, Shopify, Newegg, Top Hatter, and you name it. And what we find is, between Amazon, Walmart, and Shopify, everyone's selling on one of those three. And then it's amazing in the other marketplaces they sell on. And it really comes down to the niche of each marketplace and, what that demand side of the marketplace looks like. But when they start to move into their own website, that's when they start to notice challenges that maybe they didn't foresee before. When you're selling on Amazon, Amazon is this huge demand engine. And there are some people who have their own websites and they have their own brand, and they're actually just leveraging Amazon for some of that initial, pop because they can leverage that marketing engine. But then when they move over to their own website, they now have to create that demand themselves. It's not, what happens is we find with a lot of customers is they're kind of surprised that they don't have the same traffic. And now they have to create that traffic themselves, whether it's Facebook ads, Instagram, Google ads and things like that. And they're outlaying capital to drive the demand. And then they're, coming up short on the capital to actually keep up with the demand, and not doing any plugs for payability here or anything like that. Obviously, that's the world we live in. So we see it all the time, providing capital to sellers. But there is that almost disconnect in that like initial stages. If they were an Amazon focused seller, and now they're going onto their own website, understanding that they cannot be found until they start spending marketing dollars to get through the noise. And it's usually like an initial pain point we see when they're moving over to their own website.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think that what we tell our students is don't worry about going to your own website. Amazon's demand is just such an incredible marketplace that you can work within it. You have so much data with tools that you can use to predict that demand. And you can, if you know what you're doing, the holy grail is that organic traffic and organic sales that you don't have to pay a lot of money for, right? So once you get ranked, then you can start making money without paying for it. Whereas then you do have to drive traffic. So I wouldn't recommend maybe a Shopify site in the immediate, forefront unless two things. You've scaled your brand to a significant number of SKUs so that you can have your own hub. And when people get there, you can have a large average cart size and it can make it worth it for that profit margin. Or that you have a reusable or replenishable type product, skincare, something like that. And so what I see a lot of large Amazon sellers do that are in those niches is they will use Amazon as one of their funnels. So the top of funnel is Amazon, once they make a sale on Amazon, then they're using insert cards and other ways to contact those sellers to try to drive them to their own site and keep them in their own hub on their site with reorders and things like that. But in the short term, I don't see it being profitable for most sellers.
Does anybody disagree with that? I'll
go ahead and stick my neck. I'll stick my neck out there. Like I mean, the majority of my revenues do come from Amazon. So I want to say that, but I love building communities for my different brands and pretty much everything that I enjoy doing. And creating content has always been something I enjoyed doing most, and having a community and being able to create content in it, and run those purchases to a website or to somewhere else for launching once my products are stabilized on Amazon and doing good, and being able to turn that switch on and off if something happens on Amazon I don't like. To me, that's really been the central nervous system of my model of running for many years. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a total disagreement on everything, but I definitely dip my toe in the other water.
I think both Brandon and Carlos have a good point. You know, there's this idea of security, but there's also loyalty and continuity that you get out of this. This idea of being able to, like, Amazon is great, but you get no first-party data. And without first-party data, it's hard to create renewable purchasing sources. Like I think of a product that I buy originally on Amazon. It's this, it's a really great product out of like Oregon called Laird. And it's like stuff that like turmeric and other things you can put in creamer from Laird Hamilton, bodybuilder. And it's a really good, they have this really great subscription service once you've already bought it. And I would just tell you that the value that they've gotten from me by creating that separate pathway to get me to sign up and then not have to have me reshop them is huge, because Amazon could be out of stock. And then that stat I read before, someone tries a different brand, and then, 70+% of those people go and stick with the new brand.
And there's a chance, and there's a really good chance people are going to go from your website to Amazon and Amazon to your website, right? Brett, you were going to add something.
Yeah, no, just to piggyback on what Eric said there. I mean, I think it's another touch point. It's another place where you can convey some information. You're already working hard to build out A+ content. Maybe you're making videos, or you've got your store on Amazon. If you're that heavily invested in Amazon, repurpose that content and put it on your own website so that you can at least get another touch point out there.
I think it's also a combination of knowing your customer and knowing your buying avatar, but also knowing your cash flow situation. You can't dig your way out of an Amazon cash flow issue by trying to spin up a Shopify site all of a sudden. You're going to need to really learn. It's a whole different type of marketing. So you're either going to need to hire somebody, or you're going to need to spend a lot of time. And one thing that I sometimes see, like especially private label sellers, where they fumble with that, is that they take their eye off of the thing that is generating revenue, but just not quite enough, or maybe they're not hitting their break-even point. And they focus on Shopify that they don't have any knowledge in, and they don't pay attention to this. And now neither stream is really generating the income it needs. So you need to make sure that you're really having a thoughtful process, especially if you're a smaller seller. If you're a larger seller and you have stakeholders and investors, then you're going to naturally have to have that more strategic plan, because it's going to need to get approved through all of those layers. But especially if you can't just dig yourself out of one with the other. It needs to be a thought out, premeditated decision.
Yeah, to add on to Robin's point, I actually just had a Zoom call with another friend this morning. You need to be really ready to get onto another platform, because I've heard something this morning called the 7-day suspension on Walmart. So if you're not meeting your shipping matrix, if you're not able to deliver to make sure that things are delivered on time, with a different marketplace, there's a whole different set of rules. The suspension is real. With Shopify, you need to make sure that you're also meeting your shipping metrics as well. So really evaluate your capabilities. If you're able to send out seller fulfilled products to different platforms, without that, I don't think it's a good idea to move and then spread everything out, because you're going to spread yourself thin.
I think too, to sort of echo it, it depends on where you want to go with your business. If this is a lifestyle thing and it's spitting off money and you're not really doing a ton of work on the Amazon side, and it's sort of maintaining all power. But if you want to get more than just a 3 or 4 or 5 times val on your business, and you want to really exit a real brand, I think you're going to need to have some of those bolts in place. But you got to know when to time it right. You got to know when to do it. I've seen so many brands that start with Shopify, start with Instagram, start on TikTok, bring that momentum over to Amazon, and it's just so much easier. They're not even good at Amazon, but they're good at Amazon because of the momentum they built outside of the channel. The challenge is there's not really a good course on that side of it. There's a ton of courses on Amazon and how to sell products on Amazon. It's such a tried and true process now that you can sort of go through it and figure it out. It's the other side of the business that is more challenging in my opinion, but then we'll also bring in a much higher value for your business if you can sort of round it out.
I like
so
what Ryan says.
That's the blue ocean. Maybe all the internet marketers will move there. Joe, did you want to add, and then I want to wrap this section up, see if Rachel or Don want to add anything to that.
When we're talking about building business value here, it's really important to understand things like the lifetime value of your customer. You have to have that first party data with the customer in order to be able to understand that. And you have to understand your customer journey, which is a lot more complicated than just Amazon or website, right? Customers go back and forth between these different channels. They enter in at different parts of the funnel and exit at different parts of the funnel at all these different times. When you put together the entire customer journey, then you actually understand your true cost of advertising rather than just like direct attribution from, which is what you get from Amazon, right? And when you understand your indirect, your total ROAS, then you actually understand what you need to invest to build your brand, both on and off of Amazon. Those are the things that create a sustainable brand that make it a lot more valuable.
Sounds good. Just one quick thing, Jeff. Well, we're, just from talking to our customers, we're seeing a lot of them really doing well with their own brand and with their own websites. And what they've been doing is using 3PLs to fulfill. So they've been able to jump into it without the huge cost of fulfilling themselves and grow the business. And from what they've been saying to us, they've been really enjoying that and doing really, really well with it.
Rachel, anything else you want to add to this before we jump to the next topic?
Yeah, I'm surprised that I haven't heard anyone talking about Facebook at all. I know it's really easy to talk about websites and how difficult it is to get traffic there, but one of the things that can be really helpful is, and not in a break the rules way, but using something like ManyChat, plugging that into your website, plugging that in on Facebook, getting people and that direct communication with people. I find that clients who have their own email list or their own ManyChat subscriber list or some sort of following or groups on Facebook, it's much easier to launch products with them. So yeah, it's certainly worthwhile if the client has the time to do it.
Barbara, one of the attendees, just said she's killing it on Facebook Marketplace and Facebook Live. And Brett, I know you have a client who has been killing it with Facebook and selling his items on Facebook, and then it's translating to more sales on Amazon.
Yeah, we actually got several, and a couple that are doing amazing through Shopify and their own channel, just running ads direct, as well as using Amazon attribution, sending traffic to Amazon. That's a little wonky still. It's not perfect yet. If Amazon wants some feedback on it, but it's still a functional tool. It'll help you a little bit.
Well, you almost perfectly rolled me into my next topic. I'm going to move on to Amazon advertising. Amazon has many new placements, features, functionality, reporting for brands and sellers to increase their exposure. They all cost money. Which ones are working? What do you see brands considering for investment in 2021? Do you see the cost going up? Do you see the cost going down? A couple questions that came in on this topic from our audience was, with the space so crowded, how do you market your product? Where are we seeing the best return on investment for ad spend? Do you expect to see Amazon CPC rise or stay even higher in 2021? So a loaded question there on Amazon advertising, and would love to let you guys jump into that topic.
Seems like an easy one is anytime there is something new, like we're doing audio ads now, and anytime something new rolls out that you can get into, that everyone's just going to hold back and wait and say, let's see how this goes. Just when they roll out something new, put on your PPC hat and look at your data and just jump in and do it and just make a killing. That's an easy one. Now, if I could just figure out how to get audio ads to convert during the week, I'll be happy.
Some of the best places we've seen clients really succeed right now is video and search. They're getting incredible ROAS, video and search, but also the demand side platform, otherwise known as DSP, the retargeting capabilities, and then like the display ad opportunities that we get on there. Right now, a good portion of our clients that are leveraging DSP are seeing about, if we benchmark it, 20% better return on DSP for ROAS than they are in sponsored advertising. So I think that, I mean, that's incredible. You don't see that typically in other marketplaces. Like the display advertising always performs worse than like the direct advertising units.
Well, yeah, on DSP, we're getting in video ads, which has been great as well.
Yeah,
it's been amazing.
I want to really agree with what Joe just said, and just say the thing that I think is the cardinal sin with DSP, though, that we see, and I just want to add on because I so agree with video and search, and I so agree with DSP. The thing that I often see, though, is that people feel like it was so much effort to get it going or get the video or the banners done that they then don't go do the test and learns afterwards. And so I just really want to say, if you're doing these programs, commit that nothing is set and forget on Amazon. Like there is always someone who is innovating slightly faster than you are. You know, Carlos doing audio ads, I got to say, I was thinking when you said that, I'm like, shoot, I don't know how many of my clients are doing that yet. You were right. Like as soon as they roll it out, do it, but also make a turnaround, a plan for when you're going to touch it again, when you're going to check it, when you're going to test and learn. And I think that I would just add to that.
And I think Amazon, we've seen, you know, Brett can probably speak to this a little bit more, but we're seeing betas of Amazon providing video development tools so that you can just stick a picture in and make it spin around and have video. And, you know, it's not expensive. Well, maybe it is, right? An iPhone is not cheap, but you don't need a full production crew. But I'm going to even push you guys further and say, what about the basics? Right? Like you guys are talking about the fringes of like the things to go and test and explore, which is what makes you all the experts that you are. But what about the basics? And some of the things we've seen through Q4 is that the cost of advertising has not increased because the total demand increased so much that Amazon couldn't fill it all. So you were able to still get traffic at a reasonable price. But what happens to that? As maybe e-commerce slows a little bit from its peak from the pandemic, you know, what are you predicting for cost in 2021? Everyone's doing sponsored products. So let's talk about sponsored products. Let's talk about sponsored brands. I love the things that you should also be testing and trying. So keep throwing those out there, but
really,
go ahead.
Oh, real quick, I just want to comment on what Joe said, and I totally agree. Sponsor brand video and search is working excellent. And I think it's so important that brands find a way to leverage that next year because it is going to become more and more important. If you look at the 8 big social media companies, they all have a story method in their platform. They all have a way of people telling stories because it is incredibly easy to create a story. It takes nothing more than an iPhone, like you said, and it's incredibly engaging. It's becoming the norm with things like TikTok and Instagram, where it's just easy to see just a person talking and showing a product. And that's all you really need to be sold on that product. But to go back to sponsored products, sponsored brands, it's about having a strategy in place and having your funnels built out, understanding the customer journey, or your costs will increase in 21 and you're probably not going to be as happy with them.
Brandon, were you going to say something?
Oh, go ahead.
I'll come to you next, Robin.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I think that content is king. The days of, you know, putting up bad content and images and then running ads at an affordable rate and winning are over. Ranking is 100% about click-through rate, conversion rate. And so if your image, your content is not as good as your competition, you are just going to not get the clicks in the ranking and your product's going to fail. Like for us, PPC is all about maintaining organic rank. So we do our launches, we get our organic rank, and then we turn on ads. And if they're effective in helping us maintain or gain further rank, then we keep them on. If they're not, then we turn them off. And what we're going to see is that cost per click is going to become prohibitive in a lot of niches. It's going to be something where a lot of people that are bad at Amazon, that are bad at launching, that are stuck where they're trying to get out of products or their only business is from ads, where a large percentage of their sales are from ads, they're going to be just spitting each other up. Whereas I think if you become more efficient and better at driving outside traffic, it's going to be more cost efficient. And so you should just focus on your content. The other thing that Carlos brought up earlier with live video is fantastic because my wife being from China, we're over there a lot. We look at the trends of their e-commerce platforms and think about how they're just ahead of us here in America because they went straight to e-commerce and mobile e-commerce much faster than we did. And the live video is such a huge trend over there that I can really see that being something that becomes huge over here. But with regards to ads,
yeah, they have like live video studios where people just come in to produce their live video and then leave.
It's
a
incredible
for video.
I think we'll see that
incredible.
too.
So you'll see where they have like 5 cell phones lined up and they're streaming on 5 different platforms at the same time. And they have people behind the scenes answering questions in all of those platforms. So you'll see one girl in front of the camera trying on clothes or bouncing with models, coming out with a new outfit, and you swipe up, you can buy it right there in the app.
Yeah, I met a couple. Carlos, you probably know who they are because I was talking with you and this couple at Scott Volker's event. They're doing like millions of dollars. It's all she does the same thing. She goes live on Facebook. She shows some clothes, and they all sell right through Facebook through chat. She collects your credit card, your size, your address.
Taobao is like a blueprint for that.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Taobao is a major thing to follow. But another trend that's a warning from Taobao is that it became so expensive you had to pay to play. Now, Amazon's ranking algorithm still doesn't, they kind of fixed that, I think, because pay-per-click ads traditionally convert worse than organic traffic. So what we're finding is that your ranking as being a combination of click-through rate, conversion rate, and relevancy is that if you're running too many ads as a percentage of your overall sales, it drives down your overall rank because it drives down your overall conversion rate. And so we try to maintain a healthy tacos or a healthy total advertising to sales.
Robin, before I have you comment, I'm just going to launch another poll. Just curious how people are managing their advertising. So give us a little data here on how you're managing your advertising. Robin, if you want to go ahead and share your comment, you can.
Yeah, so we audit a lot of PPC accounts. Sometimes people will come and they want us to check and see how things are doing, and we see people, even if they're using sometimes AI software, they don't have the fundamentals set up. So you need to go back and make sure your fundamentals are solid, and especially if you came to Amazon from Google advertising, you really need to make sure you're really clear on the match types. The definitions are labeled the same, but are different on Amazon than they are on Google. If you haven't checked out the Amazon Learning Console, it's a free place that Amazon provides. They keep the training pretty up to date. And they also provide a certification for you at the end of that. So if you, there are different levels. I think only the main 1 or 2 or 3 levels are available to everybody, but it's some place to start. But if you're talking, like, I would love to just talk about all the nerdy, cool, like awesome cutting edge things that we can do all the time, but not everybody has the budget to get to those cutting edge things. So if that's the place that you're at, it really comes down to making sure you've got proper campaign structure, you're properly utilizing match types and everything properly. The more niche your product is, the more likely it is for you to remain profitable just doing sponsored products. But if you're selling a garlic press, you're going to need to do a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback on what Robin said, and I'll give one really important tip for the people watching. Because the biggest mistake I see people make with sponsored ads is that they have overlap. It's because they don't understand how Amazon considers the keywords the same. Because if a plural is the same as the singular, and keywords that have conjunctions in them are considered the same as those that do not have conjunctions. So I find a lot of people that will target a lot of keywords multiple times in multiple campaigns, and they'll have campaigns bouncing back and forth and competing. And as you try to optimize, you're just chasing your tail because one's coming down, the other one starts showing up. So you have to learn proper structure, like Robin said, and you have to understand the rules and what Amazon considers what.
I'm going to jump to one topic, and if you want to go back to advertising and talk, we can, but we've got about 10 minutes left until the top of the hour, and I want to make sure we cover this in the first hour. And then for those that want to stay around, I have a couple of other topics if people want to continue to listen. I want to cover the topic that a couple people brought up at the beginning. I know Don brought it up about the billions of dollars that have rolled into the space. So over the past few weeks, over the last month, over this last year, we've seen millions, if not billions of dollars roll into the space. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of it's debt, right? It's not necessarily free cash. They're just getting access to money. But the goal of that is for them to buy and consolidate Amazon businesses. So what does that mean for 2021? Is 2021 the year to sell your business? what's going to happen to business valuations with all this cash in the market? If a brand needs to access capital, what are their options if you want to position yourself and take advantage of this? And Don, since you brought this up during your predictions, I'll let you kind of start this off, and we'll run with this topic for a little bit.
You're the man, Jeff. So, what I see is that there's a lot of money coming in. You're going to see multiples going up over the next few years. So if I was, a seller and thinking about selling, I would probably try to push that off a year or two so that the margins, the multiples go up. I'd, get the capital. You have big opportunity in front of you right now. There's no question about it. And the question that I have is, I don't know how long that opportunity is going to be there, whether it's going to be there for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years. But one thing from running and building many businesses, I know one thing for sure, it will change. So who's ever out there thinking that whatever the market...
2-3 years ago, there was another whole group of companies that were all out trying to consolidate businesses, right? If you remember eCommerce 101 and a couple of other businesses, I don't know where they are today. They don't show up.
Bad at managing the businesses, unfortunately.
They're what?
They were bad at managing the businesses, unfortunately.
But I think that's what Don's saying is like, they all won't survive.
Well, I think what you're finding is Jeff. So Thras is the big gorilla in the room, right? They have $1 billion valuation, Thras.io. And so they're fantastic at managing businesses. I know I've consulted with their brand managers and with their leadership, and they take an approach where they'll take a market leader and then still grow it. So they are taking people who are, normally getting lower valuations because they have one single SKU that's a hero SKU. So a traditional buyer would say, oh, that's a risky business. But for them, they're looking at it as a portfolio approach. Overall, I think valuations with the competition are just going to continue to go up. And Amazon is becoming more mainstream, more business. It's just, don't sell this year if you're planning on it. It's just going to get better and better for everybody.
Yep. Joe, did you want to add something?
Well, I was going to say, I think Thras and these other aggregators have learned a lot from the previous mistakes of some of these well-intentioned ones in the past. And now what they do is they don't carry on the operators, right? They say the reason that you were successful is you had a good idea, but the reason you haven't grown beyond 2 million or 5 million is you're a poor operator. So we're going to take your product, we're going to take your idea, we're going to put together our own internal operations department, which is going to grow the brand both on Amazon and off Amazon.
Yeah, not only that, Joe, you get economies of scale, right? So like if Correct. You're operating all 40 or 400 of these businesses, now you can aggregate all of the shipping and logistics and save money in multiple ways.
Yeah, there's no
Correct.
question.
And so I think you're going to see it. I'll let you get in a second here, Eric. So I think you're going to see a little bit of a dystopia here, actually, which is that these aggregators are going to continue to buy the niche brands that have a somewhat of a moat, right? Either in value proposition or intellectual property. But then you're going to have these other areas where it's just going to be so commodified. You're going to have all these, for lack of a better phrase, the Chinese knockoffs in all those areas driving down price and just no distinction between the product lines. And you'll have these big companies that own a lot of unique, good products. And that's like this weird dystopia that's going to kind of form on Amazon.
Joe, I'm so glad you mentioned the Chinese, because I was reminded when Brandon was just talking for a second, there was this point where Jeff and I were eating in China, and we were there at the table with this guy, with the guy that was running Anchor at the time. And he said their entire process, their entire way they've grown is really to try and just be 1% better than their competition every time the cards are dealt. And I think it gets back to that idea of what you were saying. You've got the back office synergies. You've got which is an immediate cost savings. Then you've got the fact that most of these owner operators, they can't operate at scale with the best in class scalable fulfillment, logistics, marketing, all of the things that you could combine across entities and take a portfolio approach the way Brandon was saying. And I think you can really, I think there's going to be a ton of value for these companies. Particularly, a lot of people are saying, well, there's too much money in the market for it to work, but there's so many sellers. There's not nearly enough money in this to be saturated yet.
Okay, so what's that mean for the people that are listening? What's that mean, Alex?
Well, I think one thing that we're kind of missing here is when we look at a company like Thrasio, and they have $1 billion valuation, private equity money is just starting to move into this market, and it's because they're chasing yield. The rest of the economy is kind of dead. You know, not trying to be morbid here, not trying to be like overly negative, but investment banks, private equity firms, large hedge funds are used to investing in all sorts of sectors of the economy. And essentially at the end of the day, they're raising money for investors and they're looking for 18% yields. And every time you start chasing yield, you know, it starts to become a race for the bottom. So I think what's going to happen is what we might see is we're going to see a ton of private equity money pile in. They're going to make Thrasio look tiny because they're going to have 20, 30, $40 billion. And we're going to have the same exact problem that we had when private equity moved into retail. It's going to destroy the brands. Like if you remember, there are so many brands out there that they had one store, like, you know, for those in New York, we had Fairway. Fairway was a great grocery store. Then they expanded 2 locations, 3 locations, got private equity money. Now they're out of business. And we could go down the line for all these different retail groups that at the end of the day, when you only care about the margins and you only care about the metrics, and you're now running that business for outside investors, not necessarily for the user, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of brands really grow big, and the founders of those brands will sell, and then those brands will disappear over the next 2 to 5 years because of the way that they're going to be run won't be as organic as what actually built that brand in the first place. I'm trying to bring this down to what that means for the brands that are on this call. Does that mean that they're going to get more money for their brand when they go to sell? Does that mean that future is harder for them to compete?
Yeah. No, it's going to be better. If they launch their product successfully, they're going to get more money for their brand, and it's only going to get better. E-commerce is growing. Like if you're able to solve the problems that people are facing right now with launches and with the inventory restrictions and keeping your IPI score, and you can navigate it and overcome the challenges, those are just barriers to entry for new sellers anyway. So if you are determined to get past it and learn and launch and rank effectively, then yeah, all the money coming in that Alex is talking about, a race to the bottom, that's a race to the bottom for the PE firms, meaning that they have to give more valuation in order to buy our brands. And that's just going to mean that we're just going to get more money as the sellers.
Exactly. I totally agree with that.
Carlos, were you going to add something?
No, but pretty much just shorter version of what Brandon said. Future is bright. Like, I don't want to repeat it, but that's pretty much exactly what Brandon said.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Grow right now for the next year or 2, 3 years, and then set up to sell. That's where the money's going to be. Take advantage of it. I agree, Brandon.
Well, I think it means, oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. Just one consideration, you know, if you are itching for an exit, realize that you are the expert in some of these equations. They're not all like Thrasio. And you are the expertise, and you might be able to accelerate your val with the idea that you coming on as the management part of their business, you helping them scale their business because you understand the piece that they don't. And so I agree with these guys. Like if you hold out longer and you're going to do a true brand exit and like just give them the brand, you're good to go. But if you want to, you know, sort of work for it a little bit harder and help them sort of scale something that you believe in, you might be able to get a higher val now.
That's 100% true. Sorry, Joe. I just want to piggyback on that with Ryan, because I've been approached by several companies that have a lot of money raised that are looking to give more upside to the founders and keep them on as a business model.
Yeah, they need the owner operator.
They need the owner operator. They're not Thras. They don't have 60 well-trained people, right? And they're not pillaging from a bunch of companies. That they need the owner operator. So they're not buying out 100% of the equity. They're owner financing and giving a nice chunk of change, but also keeping on so that the owner operator can grow it and get upside as well. So, and what Ryan said earlier is brilliant. Like once you hit a certain number of SKUs, your focus should be on building your audience and building off of Amazon, because that increases the valuation as well. You need that extra protection that Carlos talked about and that others talked about, which is, you know, you have that backup plan. You have traffic coming in as a percentage from other marketplaces as well.
Okay, so it's nearing the top. It's nearing the top of the hour. So I'm gonna be respectful of people who have other commitments at the top of the hour. If anyone is interested in staying on, we're going to stay on and cover a couple of additional topics, maybe go for like another half hour. If we start to see a bunch of people dropping off, then we'll drop off. Panelists, you're welcome to drop. You have no obligation to stay. You've more than fulfilled your obligation by being here. So I'll take a quick second and thank all of you. I thought this was a phenomenal conversation and one that was really valuable for all those in attendance. We're going to be doing a vote. So if you guys want to vote for your favorite panelist in the chat, I will send that person an Amazon gift card. So they didn't even know that, and I didn't even know that I was going to do that. So we'll just see who you like the most.
I
And
know
her
it's
name is
a
spelled Jeff.
Carlos, I was doing the same thing.
All right, I know a couple of people have to drop off, so
I have
thanks.
to drop off here really quick. So I just want to say something before I do, though, Jeff. You
Yeah,
said
go ahead,
how does all of this kind of like what do brands or sellers for listening to this call need to understand about what's going on with these FBA aggregators? I think one of the things they need to understand is that they need to get much better at advertising, and whether that means this, I guess, will sound self-serving, whether they need to work with a partner, right, who does the advertising for them, or whether they need to get up to speed. They need to get much better at it, because the Amazon advertising platform is like, it was like in its like nascent form for several years compared to the other advertising platforms, but it's now catching up. And it's getting much more granular to where, like, if you want to advertise on Google or Facebook, be really effective at it, you need to go advertise. You need to go get an expert in it. The same thing is going to happen on Amazon, and is happening on Amazon. And you need to start doing that now. Either you need to get better educated at it, or you need to go find a good partner for it.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that comment. I want to pose one other question for people to kind of discuss here. And that is, it was the last question I had, and we'll just kind of roll into whatever topics we want to cover. But I titled this Back to Normal, right? So as the vaccine rolls out, what's the impact in 2021 on e-commerce? As people move back to normal, as people move back to going back into an office, and how do sellers plan for that, for the shift back? Does e-commerce stay the juggernaut that it is, or does e-commerce maybe take a little bit of a step back because it had extra, a little extra oomph? Rachel, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I actually think that it's not going to take a step back at all. It just actually reminds me of the situation with QR codes. So I didn't ever use them. I knew the app was on my phone, but I mean, the only thing that I did with QR codes was give clients advice on what their landing page needed to include so they didn't get suspended or something like that. And this year, everyone started using QR codes at the restaurants. And so now all customers kind of already have this built-in knowledge of, oh, it's a QR code. I know what to do with that because I've been to a contactless menu at a restaurant. Like, I know how to use this now. So you can do more with customers in terms of getting their information or interacting with them in a more authentic way because of this year that you wouldn't have. Like, it's such an interesting kind of seismic shift where people just had to learn how to go online and had to learn how to do a lot more digital stuff.
Yeah, I remember in 2016 when I went to China, QR codes were everywhere, and I had to download an app so that I could, actually use it. And then I came back and people were using them at trade shows, but nobody knew what to do. And you're right. Now it's definitely more mainstream. Robin, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot more. My parents never did like the click list and things like that. They were like, oh, that's too much work. But now they're using click lists all the time. And so we're going to see that same adoption. People who have overcome that big hurdle where it was too hard for them to get on. Now their parents, their kids have sat with them on Zoom and walked them through it enough times that they're going to be able to continue to do that. So you're going to see that surge. Now there will be a little bit of a wave, and some industries will have more sustained growth and some will have that ebb out because experiential shopping is still going to be important for some niches. So I think that we can plan on continued growth, but again, it comes down to knowing your customer and knowing if experiential shopping is going to be a big play for your customers, then making sure you have some of those in-person channels as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, Robin. I think, so the issue is like, how bad does the recession get if we have one? But all this did was accelerate the growth of e-commerce as far as, a percentage of overall retail within America. We're still way behind the rest of the world and way behind China. So if you look at China or cultures that are shop online a lot, and you look at the percentage of products bought online there versus here, we have a long way to go. So I think that the death of retail was just accelerated, but it's not going to stop all of a sudden. It has to be an experiential, like toy stores where you can play with the toys is going to be really the only thing that survives. Like Toys R Us needed to change their business model in order to live. And so I think that there will be some industries that will do much better moving forward as people can get back together. Like party supplies were absolutely decimated during 2020, but they're going to get better. And I think that certain things will maintain. Very few might pull back, but I think overall e-commerce is only going to continue to grow.
Brandon, when was the last time you were in China, and when are you planning to go next?
So we were there right when the virus broke out for Chinese New Year last year. So last January, we barely got out.
Yeah. So you were like Jing and Eddie. Jing and Eddie were literally following the virus. I think they were in Hong Kong, and then they were literally like in. Then they were like in Italy.
Yeah.
Then you were in Italy when Italy shut down, and then they came back to Chicago. I was like, get out of here.
That's amazing. Yeah, I remember. So we had to fly out of we flew out of Hong Kong, but I took a private car from Shenzhen 3 days early to park in the hotel and like quarantine in the hotel, because I was afraid they were going to shut the border. The day that we flew out, they shut the border down. And then I remember going to the toy fair in New York and seeing Eddie and everybody there and Jing there. And it was like, why are we even here? The virus is in New York already. We were like 40 cases, and like it was just increasing every day. And so, yeah, it's
so when will you plan to go back?
I would have liked to have gone back now. I have obligations. It's just tough. If you go now, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And then when you come back, you have to quarantine. So like that's a month that you just lose. So it's just not worth it for me. My wife still might go to visit family and things like that without me, but I wouldn't be opposed to going. I think China is probably one of the safest countries in the world besides New Zealand to be in. And like there's certain cities that they're starting to have some cases again, though, if people don't know, but they're really good about breaking it down and tracing it and stopping it.
We're looking at going end of year, maybe in October, to time it around the time of the Canton Fair.
If they have it in person again, October, maybe. Yeah.
It honestly really just depends on how things will develop this year. I know I do have I have a close family friend who had to really apply to fly back to China just because of a family emergency. They're not letting everyone go back right now, or fly to China right now, and you need to have a negative antibody test as well as a negative COVID test.
48 hours before you get on the plane, you have to have the test. Yeah.
Yep. So all that fun stuff right now is going on for us, me and Eddie personally. As soon as things get better, I will need to fly back just because there's so many things lined up. But again, it just really depends on how the vaccine works out.
To that point, like Jeff, like what you're saying is like all these fairs are now becoming virtual. Like the toy fair became virtual. Canton is becoming virtual. You can do a virtual tour of someone's booth and see the list of their products. Yeah. And believe me, it's much better on your feet. So I don't know. I think that like this technology,
Alibaba, their website really was born out of SARS.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Like that's really why they built, because of SARS. There was a decrease of U.S. travel in what was that, 2006, and because of that, they built an online version of that so that they could still interact with people. So
Jennifer was telling me Taobao as well was born out of that. Yeah.
And so I think one of the things we'll see, post-vaccine, getting back to normal is this concept of like, what does the new normal look like? I've realized that I don't have to go do this. Now, some of us might yearn to like hang out with each other again. And so the value of going to a trade show could be the content. It could be the sponsorship that we do. And it could be just seeing our friends we haven't seen in a long time. And it might end up being, meetups that start occurring where we're like, okay, let's all go down to Carlos's meetup in Miami just so we can all hang out because we have our shots and, we're comfortable with that now. So I think that'll be an interesting kind of roll off as we roll into 2021. But I think I agree with you. I think it's at the earliest it's Q3. I don't see there being enough of an economy of scale of any of this in Q1 or 2 to really move the needle.
Well, I think too, if you think about just like how big this market expanded, people love convenience, and people who, had never shopped online before are now shopping online, and you have an aging population. And, as people get older, that convenience is going to become more and more relevant. So, I completely agree with Robin and Brandon that there is still an experience of being in store. I think Peloton knocks that out of the park. Most people go in, they try out the Peloton, then they go home and actually order it online. So it's almost at that point, like, is their website just acting like a POS terminal that you have in your home as opposed to running your card there? But when I think about just like my parents, like my family, and like people who were afraid to ever put a credit card into into a machine, let alone into a website. Now everyone's doing it. I think the market size overall expanded, and it takes, it's kind of what I mentioned when I first came on. It takes something like an event this large to create, that many new buyers. So, I mean,
cashless commerce is another one, right? Like, how many of us are now using Venmo or Apple Pay or Google Pay because we don't want to pull the credit card out? And that was something that prior to the pandemic didn't really exist. And if you have a website, and we run an e-commerce business as well, if you have a website, you need to have your e-commerce work for those type of payments. I went to buy a pair of swim trunks, and I got the email. I hit a button. It added to my cart. I double clicked on my phone and I checked out. It was scary how easy it was. And like, that's I think the type of shopping experience that people are looking for.
Amazon's taken that to another level. You just go and pick stuff off the shelf and walk out the store.
Yes.
True.
Yeah.
And now that'll catch on more because people don't want to even talk to anyone or look at anyone or touch it, have anyone touching their stuff.
Or think about like what Rachel said with QR codes. Like, think about being able to walk into a store, open up the company's app, scan a QR code, put in your size, double click, walk out, and it sends you that. That's the mixture of what Peloton has with in-store shopping, where you might still want to go try some stuff on, but they don't carry every color. They just carry kind of a broad mix, and you're not really walking out with any bags. You're just, buying. But the infrastructure has to be there. What we talked about way earlier in the conversation, right? The infrastructure has to be there to be able to support that kind of growth.
And those Go stores, they're talking about selling the technology to all these other stores, so we don't have to wait for Amazon stores to expand. That'll be everywhere. Also, Alexa.
So explain what you mean by a Go store for people that don't know.
The Go store is what I forget who just mentioned it. Brandon, I think it was you, that it's cashless. You just go in, there's no card, there's no anything. You just walk in there, grab your stuff, and you leave.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming.
Well, then there's also the version of Ghost stores where, like, they're doing in the restaurants where the store has no storefront. Like Chipotle's opening these. You order on your app, and you pull up to a store that maybe has a door, and you push a button and your food comes out. You don't go through the counter service anymore.
I haven't seen that one. But
yeah, Chipotle just had an article about these new touchless, cashless stores that they're opening that don't require them to have any seating. So now they're taking a 4, 5, 6,000 square foot store and able to do it in 1,000 square feet.
I love it. I love Chipotle too. So that's a huge win for me.
It's a double win, right?
Alexa, hey, look, he's eating Chipotle now. Alexa just rolled out in their newsletter how they're opening a lot of stuff up for smart fridges. So I think we're getting to a point where you're going to let your fridge know what you want to have in there, and it's going to monitor expiration dates, how much milk you have left, just all that stuff, and automatically do that order. So that's pretty wild.
All right. So I'm going to wrap this up here. Let everybody say a couple final words. I know, Rachel, you got to go. So I'm going to let you, if you want to add any final words, any final goodbyes, any final thoughts as we kind of wrap this up.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. Actually, that's the first thing. The other thing was my first job for about 2.5 years at Amazon was actually handling law enforcement inquiries. And what you just said reminded me of the kind of thing that you see in those TV shows where they're like, oh, it looks like your food consumption has doubled this month. Who are you hiding in your house? Right? Feels like it could be like a CSI episode or something. But thank you so much, Jeff, for scheduling this. And sorry, I've got to hop off before you wrap up. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else want to go? Don, you want to go next and just kind of some final words?
Sure. Just one quick thing on what Carlos was just saying. All right, I'm older than all of you. In 1964, the World's Fair in New York, the GE Pavilion, what did they have? They had this refrigerator that knows when you're running out of milk and whatever else, and restores it. It was amazing. I'll give
that was the future, and look, we're here.
Hey, man. And that was also opening day for the New York Mets at Shea Stadium. We were stuck in the worst traffic ever in New York that day. So I'll give you a crazy prediction. that I don't think is that crazy. I think that over the next couple of years, you're going to see Amazon pull back from their own brands to avoid antitrust problems. I think they'll become that super, watch their commercials, that super advocate for small business that they are in many ways and they're not in other ways. And I think, I hope so, Carlos. I think that could really, really happen. So anyway, that's my last one. Thank you, Jeff. This has been great.
Yeah. Carlos, you want to add any final thoughts?
Just a huge thank you to you for doing this. It was good catching up with a lot of you. Some of you I only see on social media. Brandon, I'm not sure what country he's in half the time. We're neighbors, but I don't see him. But
yeah, the pandemic has kept us apart. I miss you, man.
Yeah, I miss you too, man. So all of you are awesome. A wild prediction I have, I'm thinking end of this next coming year, the year after that, is I'm predicting Amazon's going to do something with health insurance for sellers. Just been following a lot of cool stuff they've been doing with pharmacy stuff and companies they've been gobbling up. Something tells me they're going to roll out some kind of health insurance stuff for Amazon sellers, which would be a really cool thing.
Do you still get the insurance if you're suspended?
Well, they still want you to pay back the loans, so I'm assuming so.
Yeah, you show up at the doctor in the morning and you didn't even know your account got suspended, and they're like, "Sorry, we can't see you."
No MRI for you.
Brett, you want to say some final words?
Yeah, first, thanks so much for having us, Jeff. And just to echo what Don said, I think that's an awesome prediction, and I'm excited to see how that might play out. But what I'd say is the customer journey has changed so much as people have dealt with scarcity in the supply chain. I can't get the brand I want, so I'll buy something else. Now they don't really care as much about the brand. They're not as loyal to that. And I think the important thing for brands, and especially for brands that are spending a lot on advertising, to think about is how can you skip steps in that customer journey? And I think content like video are great ways to kind of bypass some of those blockers in our brain where we say, I need more info before I'm really willing to buy this. You see the video, you see the USPs, you understand the product, and you buy it before you even understand that you want it, really. And I think it's important that brands are looking for ways to leverage those tools, especially in 21, 22, because it's going to become the norm. And I think it's going to be some of the main advertising units that we're going to be wanting to use and seeing efficacy in.
Awesome. Jing, you want to add anything? You're muted. Start from the beginning though.
Sorry, I had to do this every time any call. Anyways, so again, thank you so much for just bringing me online and just chatting with you guys. I've missed everyone so much. Just being away from home and seeing familiar faces. This is amazing. For me, it's not so much of a prediction for the 2021 or 2022. It's more of a tip that you just really want to closely follow all your trends in terms of sales, in terms of logistics. Any changes that you see, you want to take action immediately. This year, we've learned so much, with just Amazon advertising. We had seen a couple of ads not really converting well, and it turned out it was because either it's merchant fulfilled offers, or it's because Amazon has accidentally lost our Prime badge on one of the products. You just always want to pay close attention to any signs that you can catch. That's it.
I think I actually froze here.
Did you?
Am I back?
I see you. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Brandon, why don't you go next?
No, I mean, thanks for putting this together. It's always good to see everybody. I miss socializing and I miss getting together at events and everybody. It's been a long year. Jennifer is more of the introvert, so she's kind of enjoyed it. And we're so used to traveling so much. It's been more productive for our business, believe it or not. Like, we've just been stuck and having to work. So less socializing equals more work. And so business was better this year, even with the challenges. Just encourage everybody. I mean, this is still the best opportunity on the planet as far as a business goes. It's only going to get better. Amazon's only going to continue to grow. Just be efficient and learn how to do it properly, and focus on content and focus on efficiency.
Great. Thank you. Alex?
Yeah. I want to thank you as well for, having me and as letting me be a part of the conversation. This is definitely one of the smarter rooms of people I've been in. And, I am definitely jealous of yourself, Jeff, Carlos, and Brandon with your microphones. I'm feeling like I have to up my game here a little bit. But I think the future is bright for e-commerce. I'm bullish for years and years to come. I think the market keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And one thing I'm kind of keeping an eye out, like personally, that I think is really interesting is companies who are continuing to solve that last mile delivery and get those costs in, get those costs low. I saw a commercial recently that UPS is looking to hire drivers to use their own cars. And so that just shows you how much strain and demand there is. And the other thing I'm looking at is cold storage. You know, there's not actually that much cold storage around different cities. And kind of to my point before about groceries and just all the different stuff we're buying, you know, now that everyone's buying so much more of it, you know, perishables will perish. And I could see a lot of old malls and different types of old warehouse and manufacturing spaces being converted into different types of cold storage warehouses.
Awesome. Thank you. And last but not least, the woman I've given the shirt off my back to, Robin.
So he didn't give me the shirt. He gave me the jacket. Which
the jacket.
I still
Yes,
use.
it was the jacket.
I wore on a hike like just the other day. So I appreciate that. You know, I'm kind of like the Honda Civic of Amazon influencers. I don't have like the flashy cool stuff. I have the like really practical, like boring, like 40-mile-an-hour stuff. So what I would say is, you know, the way that we look at predictions is we're watching what Amazon is emphasizing. Amazon is really emphasizing stores. They're really emphasizing building out those things. So watching that, taking the time to actually generate some network. And if you don't have a network, just following people. But the big prediction that I think that we've kind of already talked about it, but I think it's going to be, you know, if you want to survive on Amazon, it's about really developing a thorough business plan, watching your cash flow, creating a full funnel strategy, and really understanding the fundamentals of listing. I know that that's not cool, sexy. It is not the Tesla. I think Brandon's maybe more the Tesla of Amazon people. I'm not that cool. So that's my boring Honda Civic prediction.
Oh, you're right. Like you gotta have like the beauty of this group is that they're experienced, successful sellers and entrepreneurs in the space. We sometimes forget that the stuff that got us here is that boring stuff that if you don't have, we should start over, right? Prediction for 2021. If you got a crappy product, you're not going to succeed.
Yes, exactly.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Right? Robin, it is even today, like data is not sexy. Looking at keyword research and data and determining what product to sell and how to sell it and how to optimize your listing and PPC. And Carlos loved that stuff. And he's a PPC nerd, like the biggest PPC nerd I know probably. And like, so, I mean, it's just it's
just because he uses a good tool.
But most people don't find that fun and don't want to do it. The reality is if you want a Tesla and you want to have a multi-million-dollar business and make millions of dollars a year, then yeah, you have to start with a foundation of that and repeat that process every time. It's not like you just launch a multi-million-dollar product. No, you have to start from the ground up again. So it's always start with a Honda Civic.
Yeah, I love what you said there with the Honda Civic of was suggestions or advice.
Content of influence, the Honda Civic of
influencers.
Amazon influencers.
That should be like the what do you call it?
Nate's going to make you a
teaser before the recording. That should be it. No, but I mean, my success is I have to be 95% mastery of the basics of the Honda Civics of what we do on Amazon. I mean, the rest of it's just icing.
I just think it can be really easy to look at us and be like, oh, video ads, and because we're doing all that because we've taken the time to master that. And I think that it's important that we go back and like people be like, oh, your business is so perfect. I'm like, oh no,
video ads with a junky listing.
Yeah.
Well, this is the value of the people that stuck around to the end, right? Because unfortunately, as influencers in the space, we know that people want to hear about the newest, the latest, the greatest, and so we go there. Because it somewhat makes us more, we're not cool. We're not cool if we're just talking about the basics, but we all know and agree that if you can't do it, you're going to fail, which is why you keep writing articles on how to optimize your listing for SEO, for Amazon search. It's why, you know, it's the basic things that people are still getting wrong that you have to be able to build upon to finally get to doing the other things. And I think that, you know, when it comes down to it, that's why I wanted to bring you all together. I thank you all as my friends and as guests on this. This truly is like, honestly, like 15 phone calls all in one for the audience to hear. And I think that's really cool, because this is how I learn, and this is how I share in this community, is by engaging with people that are smarter than me, who I can have intelligent conversations with, who I can debate where things are going. And then I can go back and put into practice what I've talked about, what I've learned, what I've experienced, what I've heard others do. And if I'm going to give one piece of final advice here, that is, don't try to follow and copy what anybody else is doing. Try to apply what somebody else is doing to your business. And it's a semantic, but it's the big difference of why all these people have been successful. They do not copy anything that anybody says. They are all applying that to their business and adapting it in the way that will make them the most successful. None of them have followed a step-by-step process of A plus B equals C. It's A plus H plus T plus minus Q. I failed. I'm going to start over, and then rewriting the equation 10 more times.
Eject.
So thank you all, everybody. Have a great day. We'll be back in January with a webinar on a new product launch for Seller Labs, and a new way for Amazon sellers to be looking at their business. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks, Seller Labs.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy holidays, everybody.
You too. Thanks, everybody.